looks like we need a trellis. Aha! Yep. Yep. That ought to do it. So today on the channel, I'm going to show you how to take this and turn it into this. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this video is about building a trellis for your garden in one day. So the first thing we're going to do is take this redwood 2x6. Well, first thing is we got to make sure all our safety gear is on. Gloves, dust mask, glasses, etc. Redwood is a great wood, but it can kick up a lot of dust and it can make you cough. So what we're going to do is take this redwood board and we're going to cut it in this 1x6 board, and we're going to cut it into 1.5 by 1.5 strips. Should be about 3 of them. And this is what's going to build our frame, our legs, and our support arms that are going to be part of this trellis. Now, as you can see here, I'm taking my time because this is a pretty sticky piece of wood. It wasn't completely dry, but it was dry enough. It's also pretty straight. You're going to want to make sure that your board is pretty straight, doesn't have a lot of knots or pocket holes in it, and that way it'll stand this test of time. The other great thing about using redwood is it's built for use, or not built for, it's a tree, it grows. It's great for exterior use because it's pest resistant, the bugs don't like it, it's moisture resistant. Redwood as a species loves a lot of water, so it's going to be great for that, and it's very durable outside. So originally the plan was to show you taking these legs or taking these long ripped strips and showing you how I cut them down, but somehow I managed to delete that footage, so you get to watch me partially disassemble my table saw so I have another flat surface to work with, because the shop is plagued with other projects and there's not really anything else to work. That's okay. So the next step here is, now that we've got those cut, is we're going to measure our legs. The legs are the vertical support for the trellis itself. And as you can see by the pop-up there, if you like what you're looking at, if you like the kind of things that I make on my channel, please make sure that you subscribe. For this one, it's not very tall because it's going in the front of the house, and we just wanted to make sure that it is enough to support the vines but doesn't block all the nice rock work. You'll also notice that there's a difference in my attire. I had to change into shorts because the sun came out and it got pretty hot. So the legs are now cut, and we're moving in. We're going to put these in the ground. Now I'm going to show a couple of techniques here that'll help you out with your build. Now I already have a cement pad to use as a reference, but you might not, so I'm going to show you how to use a contractor string to get a straight line between your posts. Now you're going to start with on the soil is dig about a 3-inch hole to put the first leg in, and then put this in the center. And I like to use an exterior or an additional strike block or a hammer block that I put on top there. That makes sure that the downward force I'm using with my hammer doesn't split the leg. It's not a very novel invention, but it's effective. Been using it for years. So I've got the first leg in. We want to make sure it's plumb, meaning it's level straight up and down, or straight up and down on 2 sides. You want to take at least 2 sides reference to make sure it's straight. Now once it's in place, it doesn't have to be super firm in the ground, but you do want to pack in some of the soil around it so it doesn't move very much. This will obviously get reinforced structurally as we add the top to it and the other legs. So as I said, I've got a cement pad to reference off of. It was part of a new renovation to the house, but if you don't have that, here's a nice trick. So if you've got a fence or a post or a wall or something that you can attach the string to, you're going to tie off one side of this contractor string. They're usually bright colored. This one's orange, but they come in chartreuse yellow, and I've even seen them in purple. But you're going to tie it off to the leg here. And on the left side of your screen, you're going to see this pillar that was put in. That's my anchor point for the other side. Now this is just a reference point. You don't want to make it too tight. You just want it to show where the line is. You want to show where the other leg posts are going to go. For our trellis here, we're going to use 3 legs. We're not worried about horizontally level to the ground. We're just worried about being in line with each other. So just keep checking as you go, and then I'm just going to tie a couple of half-hitch knots here to make sure that the string is in place in the right position. Again, we're not worried about level here, we're just worried about position. I think actually what I ended up using is just a trucker's cinch knot. So then once that's in place, I can put in the second leg, and this is also the same part that I figured out that I'm using my strike block the wrong way. So I keep trying to hold it in place horizontally instead of just, putting it in vertically, because, I'm a genius. There you go, guy. So then we're a lot more downward force. We're still protecting the leg we want to keep. And we're in a good position now. So with that in place, maybe a couple more taps, why not? And make sure it's all the way in there. Good. So now that that's in place, instead of keeping the string attached to the pylon, to the pillar, I decided to staple it to the top of the leg. Fortunately, forgot to check if there was actually staples in the stapler. Guess what? There's not. Pretty typical for me some days, especially when I'm trying to rush and film at the same time. So we go back to the shop and come back with the stapler that actually has staples in it. And there we go. Attached. Why not another one just for grins? Okay. And just because consistency counts, just move the string that was tied on, which is perfectly fine. We're just going to staple it to here. Again, I don't know why I bothered to do this, but I did. There you go. Your stapling addiction has been satisfied. Well, maybe one more. Okay, good. Maybe one more. All right. So with that in place, we can put the first good measurement here. Take another measurement of the cross piece without stepping on mom's flowers. So I'll tell you why there's actually a driving reason behind doing this. It's not just for looks. And you notice that the string sagged when I put the tape measure on it. That's because I was putting an undue amount of pressure as I was measuring. I went back and measured again without the pressure and got the right measurement. You might also notice that our third leg has magically appeared. I don't know how I missed that in the editing process, but I did. You'll also might notice that our structural pieces are quite a bit skinnier. They went on a pretty severe diet. Well, the foreman came by and said she didn't like the thickness of the original cuts, so I had to cut them in half. So they went from 1.5 inches to about 3/4. So now that we've got the cross piece on, before I screw anything down, I want to make sure it's level. Once that cross piece is on there, without knocking it off, we want to make sure it's level. And of course, we can't pull the legs up, but we can push them down. So this is a process of putting the level on, making sure it's square. Another adjustment. Its far leg is too far. The far leg is too tall. Knock it down. Middle one was too tall. So you go back and forth through this process. It is a little bit tedious, but it's something that we want to make sure is done right from the beginning. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. So, again, put it in place. Make sure it's level. Everybody's happy. Yeah, we're all level. So now we can start screwing things together. Now you'll notice that once you start screwing these pieces together, it's like building a house. It gets stronger as you go. So we're just going to put the first 3 screws in. I put a countersink hole in the top here that goes all the way through to the one underneath it. And I'm using 1.5 inch deck screws. And I'm going to just tighten up this post a little bit here by squishing the soil down around it. But I made a countersink hole, put a deck screw in it, and I keep checking as I go to make sure the board is square on top of the post and level. and make sure that the legs underneath it stay plumb. This is the critical piece here. We want to make sure all of this is level. Another countersink hole through the top with a deck screw for this second post, just working left to right. Dropping it a couple of times because, you know, that's normal. That's 2. Checking the third one. Making sure we're still square and plumb. And 3. Here we go. So now our cross piece is in place, and everything from here on out is going to maintain its square. Hopefully. There you go. Now, this is one of the leftover pieces that we had after we took it from 1.5 inches to 3/4, and we're going to use it to make our lower structural supports for the trellis. They only need to be about 1/2 inch or 1 inch. I think I made mine 3/4 square because it's an 1.5 inch piece of wood. Put our personal protection equipment back on: glasses, dust mask, gloves, and we just cut that bad boy in half. Make sure we use a push stick so we don't lose any fingers. And off we go. There we go. There's 2 right there. So we're going to have a total of 3 sub supports, but it's a good thing I cut 4 because you'll see in a minute. So we've just used a pair of spring clamps to hold them against the outer legs. Make sure it's level. Now watch that end of the level closest to you, because as I check the level and try to move it in position, you're going to notice gravity having an effect. Snap. That's right, kids. There was a knot right there at the point of breakage, and it just couldn't handle even the stress of the level was too much for it. So it's a good thing we had an extra, because that's useless. So here goes the first lower structural support. Again, spring clamps on each end. We're going to hold it level. Put a spring clamp on the other end once we get it in the right position. And then it's the same process as before. We're going to get we're going to just keep going with the level, and it's the same process as before, but with this one, instead of going left to right as far as screwing them into place, we're going to start with the middle. And the reason for that is once you get the middle straight, keeping the outsides level is easier. So we just put it in place. Again, countersink hole through the outer section into the wood behind it. Now the screw goes in 3/4 of the way, not the whole way, because we're going to check the level again to make sure that it's level all the way across. Make sure your level is in the middle, and this is still level, so we're just going to lock it down. Now this will keep it from teeter-tottering as we put in the other sides. Same thing, left side, right side, and we'll get all of these in place. Now you'll notice that I'm using a countersink tool that I got from Craftsman a number of years ago. I don't even think they make them anymore. DeWalt makes one. It's basically a quick change bit. So you have a countersink bit on one side, and on one end of the bit you have a drill, and on the other side you've got the driver. So here we are, all 3 ready to go. Now, even though it's redwood and it would stand up to the environment really well, I decided it would be better to go ahead and paint it just for extra longevity. So in order not to hurt Mama's plants any more than necessary, we just put some drop cloth down. And I always start with a primer first and then put the paint on. So that's all it is. I don't think you need me to show you how to paint. Just make sure you get all the sides, underside, top sides, outsides, insides, maybe a quick nap. So now that the paint is dry, you can see what this trellis is really for. I don't know what the name of this ivy-like flowering plant is. I will probably leave it in the description, but basically it just crawls everywhere. And I found out that it was actually anchoring into the masonry underneath my new rock. So I had to get it out from under there, so I didn't want to get any water intrusion. I didn't want it to damage any of the brand new stucco work that we had done. And you'll notice that this thing just anchored into all of the rock all the way around the outside or the perimeter of this wall. This is about I'll say 8 to 10 feet of vine, flowering vine, that's wound all up underneath the substrate rock. It was actually at one point underneath the flashing between the stucco and the water seal, and I had to cut it away. But I was able to save most of it. And you'll see here, it's not one strand, it's several strands of flowering vine. It just wound in everything, even wound around the coil of my hose box there. So we just gently removed it from underneath the house. And of course, it's painted. We want to make sure the paint's dry. And we just coil it around all of the different substrates, you know, sub supports, and get it all coiled around neatly around it. Now, the better part about this is, as over time, as this grows, it will continue to flower and to fill in. But I'll also show you here in a second where else it grew into that I was actually somewhat surprised by. It actually grew into the shop a little bit, and actually coiled around some of the shelves on the inside of the shop. So as you can see here, it went around the wall underneath the garage door and crawled back behind here, behind my pile of lumber and my storage shelves and just a bunch of other stuff. So as you can see here, this is a good another 8 to 10 foot piece of vine that was actually growing into the house. So we just gently pulled it out from underneath the house, or out from the garage, and wound it back around the house to the trellis. And again, this is going to be better for the plant, it's going to be better for us, it's going to keep things from getting overgrown, and it's going to give a nice support, a nice look to the house. Also, because it's in the front of the house, it'll also give some color contrast against the gray color. So there it is, a one-day trellis. You can do it in one day. If I can do it, you can do it. Here's the end product. It's a nice shot with you know, the shop dog. He seems to enjoy it. But that's the gist of it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you liked our build, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. If you got anything else you'd like me to build, please make sure to leave me a comment. If you have questions about this build, I'll take those too. But thanks again for your time, and be good, be safe, and build something fun.